Have you thought about growing your wealth but don't know how to start? Talk to Invest by Metricon. They make property investing easy. So for all your tomorrows, build your financial future today. Invest by Metricon. Build wealth. Build today.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. It has been a little while since I've hosted one of these, but it's great to be back. I'm Grace Ormsby, stepping in for Phil Tarrant for today. And I'm super excited because we do have, I'm going to say, a long-term investor in our midst. We're obviously doing this conversation via Zoom, operating in a COVID-safe way. But it is an absolute pleasure to welcome Sean Bowsen to the show. Sean, how are you going today?
Good. I'm excited to be part of the show, actually. A first timer here.
I love that. And I do want to encourage anyone who is listening, if you love the show, if you listen and you, whether you've got one property or 100 or you haven't even bought your first one, reach out and we want to hear from you, because every property investor's journey is just as relevant as everyone else's. You're going to hear something that you're going to go, that's me, or, you know, there's going to be lessons that you learn from others that you wouldn't have even thought of. So Sean, it's great to have you on the show today. Before we do get into your property journey and your portfolio, talk us through what you do day to day. What's your job?
Day to day, I work in retail. I'm a retail store manager, and I've been doing that for 21 years. And I often think it's 21 years and it's been longer than I was at school. So, and that's what I tell people when I talk to potential team members, that, you know, there's fulfilling careers in retail. Currently a retail store manager.
For sure. So I'm guessing you're probably not working as you normally would when we're not in COVID. Whereabouts in Australia are you?
I'm in the ACT at the moment.
Okay, so in lockdown?
Yeah, in lockdown. We're going on to week 3 after this week, and it's definitely been a journey. The last 3 weeks, a lot different to last year as well. These days with contact tracing, if you come up as a casual contact, you're out of the game until you get tested and get the all clear.
That hasn't happened to you, I hope.
Yes, it's happened to me.
Oh no.
Yes. It happened to me a week and a half ago. I was actually doing a lot around the ACT with different stores, and a week and a half ago, there was about a hour period which I was in a store, which meant I then had to go isolate, get tested, and wait for a result. Definitely different times. I'm
guessing that came back negative, though. You seem to be in pretty good health at the moment.
yes, negative. Yep.
Well, that's great to hear, Sean. Let's get into this property portfolio of yours. Obviously, you know, the career that you've been in that for a long time. Before we do get started on the specifics of that, what made you want to get into property investment?
Well, me and my partner, Vanessa, it was something that I'd always been interested in. Back when I was about 20, 21 years old, I had a number of goals, short, medium, long-term goals. And one of those long-term goals was back then to buy a house, pay it off, and then buy another house. So it was always a plan and a goal to be involved in property. Growing up, I only had the privilege to be part of social housing, and I just always had that dream to own my own home. And between my partner and myself, we then, just evolved from there. And when I had one property and she had one property, it then turned into two, and so forth.
Talk us through that first property purchase, because that must have been an amazing feeling for you.
Yeah. Well, the first property purchase that I really should count was nearly 10 years ago, and that was a property that I don't have anymore. I remember we saved up, and this was with my partner at the time, we saved up a small deposit and then borrowed 95%. And then bought our first home in regional New South Wales in Cootamundra. So that was the very first property. And After that, though, I classed, because I didn't keep that property. That's the only property that I no longer have. It is still technically in the family. My son lives in it. But the first property that turned into the investment was actually a 2-bedroom unit in Orange. And funny enough, I was renting. I had moved with work and I was renting. And the person who owned the unit had decided to sell. So I got a letter in the mail saying that he was wanting to sell his property. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a bit of a deposit saved up. I don't really want to move. So why don't I just buy it? And obviously that was pre-market. These days I can say that, I bought it pre-market and got it at a good price. And, looking back at the time, I didn't mean it that way, but that's looking back. It was actually a good investment. And I still own that unit now.
The orange market has gone off recently.
Yes.
It's fair to say. So what was the price like, if you're happy to share it, when you bought it?
Well, yeah, the price, I paid $222,000 for it. The owner did want $225,000. The owner bought it for $225,000. I think it was close to 5 years previous. So I figured, yeah, that's a good price. He's selling it for what he bought it for, and I'm getting it for less than what he bought it for. So yeah, it was $225,000. I think just recently, the most recent valuation was last August, when I extended the portfolio. It got valued at $310,000, and that was prior to, that was 12 months ago, and it's just gone up further from there.
Yeah, that's got to be a good feeling. And I'm guessing there's tenants in there at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I've had a tenant there. He's going on, it'll be 3 years this year. And yeah, so it's always had a tenant. I've never had any problems with tenants.
Well, what a great start to your portfolio. Like, that's got to be a good feeling from that. What was the next property after that you then went and bought?
The next property was, I'd say, Vanessa, my partner. When we met, Vanessa had a property of her own that she bought in Young in New South Wales. And again, when we met, we had that same goal to have multiple properties. And I believe Vanessa bought that property in Young. I think it was about $160,000. And that was going on 8-9 years ago as well. And with that property, that's the property we did utilise to move into our investment future together.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break there, Sean. But when we come back, I want to hear what it's actually like to start a partnership with someone and to be owning separate properties, and how you dealt with that and navigated that journey. We'll be back soon.
In the property investment industry, there's countless stories of the one that got away. And it's always the same reason. To pay the deposit, they needed the settlement from another property to come through, and they waited. Realty Assist Australia knows that when you find the one, waiting isn't an option. That's why they have a same-day settlement fund advance service. There's no credit check, no application fees, just a single one-off fee to advance your equity. Visit realtyassist.com.au/settlements now.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show. Grace Ormsby here, joined by Sean Bowson. Sean, just before the break, you were telling us about the partnership that you share with Vanessa and the fact that you actually brought your properties together to combine that portfolio. And there's probably a few people who are listening that have maybe been down that path themselves, or aren't sure what that would look like if they were to get into a relationship with someone and want to start sharing those assets. Because I imagine it was a bit of an interesting discussion at the beginning. What was it like?
The biggest discussion around it is interest rates.
Yeah.
And moving forward with interest rates and whether to fix them or keep them variable. That was a big discussion. But look, to be honest, we both had the same goals, and we've kept the two properties separate, so they're still in individual names, which, again, inadvertently, not knowing at the time, helps with land tax in New South Wales. So keeping them in individual names, again, thinking back, we didn't mean to do that, but it's a good thing. But yeah, the biggest discussions we sort of have is sometimes we joke about which houses had the best capital growth, or which houses been tenanted the best and getting the best rent. Because the house in Young does have a long-term tenant and very stable. We don't even sort of think about it. Yeah, there's literally no maintenance, and yeah, so that's probably big discussions that we have. I like the capital growth and the rent. Vanessa likes the stability of the ongoing tenant that, potentially be there for quite a long term.
I love that there's some real healthy competition in there, even though you've obviously pulled your resources down the track and everything, but you're obviously both bringing your own ideas about investment property to the table, and they all sound like great ideas. Nothing is, sticking out as what not to do, which is amazing. How, I guess, did you go about that initial, do we keep it separate? Do we bring it together? You talked about it being a bit of a happy coincidence at the beginning, but did it at any point become an intentional, we're all in together from now on?
Yeah. It was when the birth of our daughter, Isabella. We had a few months before that decided that we would buy another house together. And we had that conversation of, well, we've got two properties. We keep the two properties, and then we did want to utilise equity. The bank had a different idea of that. Maybe one of those mistakes that I could have done better on. But we did have that conversation around, okay, well, we've got this amount of equity in the Young property. So we utilise it as part of a deposit to then move on with our sort of investment journey. And yeah, we decided we'll keep both. We'll add one to the portfolio, and it was going to be a home for as long as we stayed in town, and that was in Griffith, in New South Wales, and just went on from there.
You've obviously done the rounds of the regional properties. Was that intentional, obviously following work and things?
Yes. So many years ago when I was working in Young, I was living in Cootamundra, I was working in Young, and I had a mentor said to me once, they knew a store manager who travelled around the state, and each town that they lived in, they bought a house. And when they said that to me, it stuck with me. It's always been my intention to sort of develop my career the best I can within the business I work for. And why not each time I move, then, see what we can do about buying another property. But it does stem back to growing up where I grew up in housing commission, and I didn't want to pay rent. I didn't want to pay off somebody's house for them. So that's sort of where we kept going. And I think I moved from Cootamundra to Cowra, and then to Orange, then out to Griffith in way out west, and now into the ACT. And we've been here for 3 years.
There's definitely something to be said for stability in housing, isn't there?
Yep, definitely stability. And also, we're a little bit different. We're not really concerned about the capital growth and, the rental incomes and everything. It's sort of that stability that we can purchase a property, and then if we need to move, then we can have somebody, live in it, and just, we just like go from there. So it's not about making the most money we can. It's more about, one, giving the opportunity to someone to rent the house, because we don't ask too much for the rents. We don't put the rents up very often. And then, hopefully in 20 years' time, we can retire or, leave it to the kids or whatever it be.
You sound like a dream landlord, Sean.
I fix everything. Yeah, every as soon as I get a call or an email, just fix it. And we look after our tenants, then they'll want to stay, and it'll just work out, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely makes it easier, doesn't it? And I love that you talked about buying a place in each location that you live for work, and not many people would be following that approach. You said it obviously stood out, and it's going to stick out to me long after this interview, but that mentor probably didn't realise what they were saying to you at the time and that kind of impression, did they?
Probably not, no, but I did bring it up to her about a month ago, and I let her know that, that stuck with me all of that time. We had a good conversation about it, and yeah, so she's aware of the impact that she had on my life, you could say.
Amazing. And so you're at 6 properties now, is that correct?
We're at 5.5.
5.5, okay.
The latest one, the latest property that we actually are about to move into, it's finished building, is a dual occupancy home. It's a 4-bedroom home and a 1-bedroom self-contained unit, which I guess we'll get to a little bit further into the discussion.
Yeah. So from that last one was the house that you moved into. Have all of those decisions that you've made when you're buying, are you buying just for yourselves and your lifestyle at that time, what you need in an actual property when you move to that town?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Each property is bought to suit our particular lifestyle at this point in time. I guess the investment side of it is the byproduct of buying a house to live in. So we haven't bought the houses as an investment property. It's always been buying the houses to live in and then see where the journey takes us from there, which I believe has worked out because I made a comment not long ago on social media about choose a house that you would want to live in and you sort of can't go wrong. Because if I want to live in the house, then it means other people are going to want to live in it as well. But yeah, it's been to suit the lifestyle.
So you then bought that property with Vanessa. You had your little girl. What was then the next step? What year are we talking now?
We bought the third property in Griffith in 2016. And I believe we paid $300,000 for it, and it wasn't through a real estate. And so we did get a good price, and it was actually a coincidence because it was somebody that I worked with, but we didn't know until we knocked on their door. So it was it was like, oh, hello, how are you? So yeah, we bought that. It was a 4-bedroom house for us to live in as a family. And yeah, I think last valuation of it this year was at 460,000, and that is post the whole COVID boom.
So that's more than 50%. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, we were pretty happy, but again, sort of maybe lucky or coincidental that we did buy at the right time and at the right price. I'd say luck has had a lot to do with it. It wasn't premeditated. It was more of a case of, we want to live here, we want to buy a house together. I was renting at the time because when I moved to Griffith, I was paying rent till I saved up that deposit and just built up the family.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit here, Sean, because while luck might be involved in it a little bit, you do make your own luck and you're obviously doing all the right things to further that property journey. So then following on from that property, because 4-bedroom house, that's pretty big. A lot of people, especially in Sydney, still can't really even fathom buying a house and land with a 4-bedroom property on it. So where to from there? Where did you go next?
Yeah, so from there, I think we spent 3 years in Griffith, and then we decided that we wanted to get back to a bigger town, a bigger city, and I'd been coordinating with work as well around coming to the ACT. Vanessa wasn't overly keen with it because Vanessa's a country girl at heart. Her family owns a farm, and the idea of going to Canberra didn't really sit too well. But also, we had been in Griffith for long enough, and we decided it was a need for a change. So then, we came to Canberra. Again, when we got here, we rented it was maybe 8 months. And at that point, I had always wanted to build a home from scratch, build a home. I know some investors would say, don't build a home, buy established. But we after a period of time, we saved up a deposit, and I think that was probably one of the only homes that we actually saved up a bit of a deposit for. And then we built a home in Canberra in the Holtz area, and that was in 2019 we started building, and it finished in 2020.
Which, again, would have been perfect timing given the boom that
Yes.
Canberra has been going through.
Yes, very, very lucky. We did initially, I believe the price was 536 from scratch, and we did recently get it revalued at 720,000. So yeah, I still say there's a big chunk of luck in it, but yeah, that was property number 4. And again, at this point in time, we're about to move out of that home and move into the new home. The discussions there were, do we sell? And I don't think we did discuss it, but I don't think it was ever an option, because we do firmly believe that if you own property, you're in it for the long term, not short term.
And really, considering how much it has grown over the past 24 months in itself, like, there's really unlimited potential there, isn't there, to still see upside?
Yeah.
Do you have tenants then still in all those other properties?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The tenant in Young has been there ever since Vanessa moved out. The home in Orange has had 3 tenants, and that's in about a 6-year period. And the home in Griffith to date has had 1 tenant in it, and they're a great couple. They look after the house. If anything needs to be fixed, they bring it to our attention. So we know that the property's been looked after. It's actually been probably about 4 months since we've had any maintenance needed, which tells me one of 2 things: either their house is perfect and we've fixed everything that they wanted, or they plan on moving out at some point.
Okay.
But no, really, all tenants are great, especially the tenant we have in Young. I know Vanessa would say I've put a bit of pressure on her around the tenant, because they've had 1 rental increase in 7-8 years, and I bring it up just a little bit. But at the end of the day, I believe that tenant is great for that property, and sort of Vanessa could probably just say that she's right.
Can I ask you, Sean, what the value of your portfolio is at the moment? I know you're not too focused on how much it's grown or anything, but is there a ballpark figure that you are sitting around?
Yeah, the property portfolio as it stands now, including the most recent build, I do keep spreadsheets, so I do have it all done. The current portfolio is worth 2.935 million. And the equity in that to date is approximately 995,000 in equity. So over time has just been well worth it. I remember back in 2016, 15, I think we had a property portfolio of $400,000, and now for it to be at 2.9. But it's sort of not about that. It's about suiting our lifestyle at the time, and that's where the next property comes into play as well.
And I do want to talk about that, and it is an incredible story, but we're going to take another quick break. We'll be back soon with more from Scott Bowsen.
The mark of financial success isn't about getting bigger, better, faster, or more. To Paul, success is freedom. Freedom to spend more time with his family, or giving back to his community, or just more time to go surfing. Paul Glossop, an award-winning property buyer and regular guest on the Smart Property Investment Podcast, has taken the lessons he's learned building a multi-million-dollar property portfolio and laid them out in his best-selling book, A Surfer's Guide to Property Investing. For a limited time, get your free copy of Paul's award-winning book and receive a roadmap for building both lifestyle and wealth through property investing. Grab your free copy today at purepropertyinvestment.com.
Welcome back to this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show, joined by Sean Bowsen. Sean, it's been an incredible story so far. I love that you're really focused on the regional areas, and it's paid off, especially through all this COVID-19 situation where we've seen people literally flocking from the cities out to the regions in pursuit of better lifestyle, more affordability. And it's clear that you're providing a level of affordability to your tenants as well, being a really good landlord. I do want to ask, we've alluded to a couple of times the build that you're doing at the moment. So talk us through that a little bit, because it sounds a little bit different, just the strategy going on behind that to your previous buys.
The strategy is a little bit different, and circumstances comes into play quite a bit. Last year, when we moved into our new home in Holt, we were pretty happy to sort of start to pay down debt and sort of live a bit more.
Which fair enough. You have done very well so far, so you might as well start actually doing that.
To live, and that's probably another story as well of how much we've sacrificed to do what we've done. But yeah, last year we decided that my mum, who lives in Sydney, she was close to retirement. She's got nobody left in Sydney, no family left. And we decided that, okay, maybe it would be a good idea to do something for my mum in retirement to ensure that she has somewhere to live. Again, back to that, we grew up in Housing Commission in Sydney, and we didn't grow up with money, and my mum's coming quite close to retirement, and we thought, well, okay, well, what can we come up with? And then as sort of that idea just evolved. Vanessa would tell you that if you put an idea in my head, I just take it and run with it. So basically, within a 2-month period, we had, for the first time ever, gone to a broker. All of this journey, we didn't go to brokers or buyer's agents or anything, but we went to a broker and we tried to see how much we could borrow to purchase a property to build for my mum. And then during that time, I actually reached out to the person who I bought the previous property off, and we found a package of a 5-bedroom, fully self-contained unit downstairs, self-contained laundry, self-contained kitchen, everything that we could potentially buy. And we went to the broker, and the broker somehow done his work and said that we can borrow X amount. And I think all up in 2.5 months, we then committed to building the new property, which we do move into this week. But the reason for building it was to have that for my mum in her retirement so that she could live somewhere and be close to the family. Again, to suit the lifestyle that we're currently at. This time around, I have done a bit more educated. I did know that we did release a fair amount of equity from the other properties, which all has gone into this current property. And we do plan on staying there for quite a long period of time. And hopefully, whatever happens in the future, if we do need to sell that property, there won't be any capital gains on it. The value hopefully would have gone up. And there is a bit more strategy to it. And we purchased that off the plan. I know people don't like hearing off the plan, but we did. It was 886, and that was last year, June, July last year. And since then, the 5-bedroom properties in the areas are selling anywhere from 1.1 to 1.2. So at this stage, we're pretty lucky that we did say yes and we did commit to that build. I think it was 2 months later, they then had the same build back up for, it was like $70,000 more than what our contract price was.
And it would have been an interesting time to buy anyway. The market was just kind of coming back out of its lull post our first lockdown.
Yes.
Did you have apprehension about it?
Yes, I did. I didn't. However, the broker did. The conveyancer did. And I think Vanessa was a little bit, but she was on board. But one of those people did say to me, I think you should pull out of this, because the financing was very difficult and it was a very short turnaround. And my solicitor did say, I think at this point in time, you need to pull out. And I didn't, because we sort of don't give up. And the broker doesn't give advice, but he did give his personal opinion.
Oh my goodness.
Because, yes, there was a lot of volatility around and we didn't know what was going to happen. We were in the middle of lockdowns and, you just didn't know what the future held. But a year and a bit later, we're now ready to move in, and the byproduct is that it has gone up in value, and, just everything's worked out well.
What is that feeling like, knowing you're about to move into? Are you calling it a forever home? Is it?
We want to call it the forever home. That's what we want to call it. And then we have our other 4 properties as pure investment properties. Whether that happens, I just can't tell what's going to happen in the future. But that is meant to be the forever home. And it gets an income as well from the self-contained unit. So it's sort of a double sort of meaning to the property as well.
Which is great to hear. And I do want to ask, do you feel like you've reached a point of financial freedom?
3 months ago, no, I was trying to sort everything out. But as of this week and next week, we have reached where we need to be. And what that means is we now need to pay down debt. If I was to lose my job, then the 4 investment properties are slightly positive geared, and that does help with the low interest rates, so that we've got that security to know that if something did go wrong, we will be okay. So at this point in time, we want to spend 10 years paying down debt and living a little, because for the last 5 years we've just saved and moved and saved and bought property. But it's definitely time to live a little bit and just pay down debt, and then look to retirement after that.
So no more properties on the cards at this point?
I did joke with the builder yesterday, because the builder has built both homes in the ACT, and I did say to him yesterday, when we find in a few years' time, when we find a big block of land, we'll build a block of 4 units. Vanessa nearly killed me. But there's always that, potential to do something more. But at this point in time, the 4 investment properties and the one we're currently in, we believe is more than enough to sort of cement our retirement in the future. Because it's the value's there, and if the value even goes up, always just based on a 2 or 3% rise in value. I know realistically it could be a lot more than that on a yearly basis, but I just, I think 2-3% a year on a $2.9 million portfolio is more than enough to retire on.
Well, that's all sounding super great, Sean. I do want to ask, before we do wrap this up, where did you get all this knowledge and this insight from? Because you talk about only seeing a broker the last time you actually went. So a lot of it sounds very self-guided, which is very impressive. How did you get to that point of knowing all this?
I don't think I did. So that's why I say maybe luck's got a lot to do with it. I do things a little bit different. I don't have interest-only loans. It's all principal and interest. Everything at this point is variable. I didn't set out to, get a property that I knew that was going to go up in value by 100% in 7 to 10 years. Obviously, over the last probably 6 to 8 months, I have done a lot of research, and probably about 6 or 7 years too late. But we just sort of, I like numbers, and I'm pretty good at, calculating, whether something's going to work out well in the end. And then back to that comment of if you buy a house in each town that you live, well, just that was the education I had, and the fact that we didn't want to pay off somebody's house for them. And I'll probably over the next number of years will use some of the knowledge that I've built up in regards to consolidating debt, especially.
Well, Sean, best of luck with the new chapter and moving into the new house, and enjoy just living a little, because it truly sounds like you deserve that. So enjoy all that time with your family.
Will do. Thank you.
It's been wonderful to chat with you today. I can't wait to keep up to date with your story, because while you say it is your forever home, who knows what's going to happen, just with all the property markets and what they're doing, but they're all going up, which is an amazing time to especially be an investor in regional New South Wales. But if you enjoyed this episode of the Smart Property Investment Show, please let us know, like or review us on whatever platform you're using to listen in. If you have any questions or you think you might be a upcoming guest on our show, reach out at editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Make sure you're staying up to date with all the latest news and information on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, and check out our socials: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and our Instagram. Until next time, stay safe and well. Bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
In the property investment industry, there's countless stories of the one that got away. And it's always the same reason. To pay the deposit, they needed the settlement from another property to come through, and they waited. Realty Assist Australia knows that when you find the one, waiting isn't an option. That's why they have a same-day settlement fund advance service. There's no credit check, no application fees, just a single one-off fee to advance your equity. Visit realtyassist.com.au/settlements now.